Once upon a time, in an ancient game known as The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, there was a speedrun category so esteemed that only the most acclaimed speedrunners would even attempt it. A category so revered, so admired, and highly regarded that not even Hylia herself could even comprehend. The goal of this speedrun? To jump off a cliff and die. This is the world record history of Die%. To specify, the goal of this speedrun is to die as quick as possible from starting a new game. Though I'm covering the fall off a cliff version of Die%, meaning the final damage must be from fall damage. All that clear? Good. Let's jump into it. At the beginning of the category's creation, 2 world records would be set for the category in quick succession. The first was a 2-minute 22-second time by the runner Lulucore. This is a good run to look at for the earliest route. Link would wake up in the Shrine of Resurrection and immediately dash over to the pedestal with the Sheikah Slate. There are 3 parts to getting out of the Shrine of Resurrection. The first is obtaining the Sheikah Slate from this pedestal, which simultaneously opens the first door. Then there's another pedestal / cutscene to open the second door. Finally, there's one last cutscene at the mouth of the tunnel that shows you the cinematic scenery of the beautiful landscape. Lulucore starts out by dashing to the first pedestal, then to the second, and finally climbs up to the last cutscene trigger. Then it's time to jump. Now, there is a reason for jumping off the right side. The ground below the ledge on the right is slightly higher than the rest, meaning you'll save a tiny bit of time when falling. All this ends with a 222.07. The next record is a 221.8 by ATZ. No, not the chips, focus. This was essentially a slightly more optimized version of Lulu's run. This route seemed basically solved. What else could there possibly be? With very confined space, a couple boxes, and an already extremely close cliff to jump off of, what more could be done? On February 11th, 2018, Blue would discover a way to simply go through walls. You can clip through certain corners by using the scope function of the Sheikah Slate. Using the boxes, we can construct a corner with the correct collision. How convenient. Then we can climb up this out-of-bounds cliff and to the top, whereby uncrouching you can clip back inbounds. How convenient. We can then dash over to the Shrine of Resurrection and gloriously leap to our deaths. How convenient. Utilizing this route, we can skip steps 2 and 3 of escaping the Shrine of Resurrection. All this resulted in a 2-minute 2-second time by Grega on September 16th, 2018. There is room for improvement setting up the boxes, and they had a little trouble clipping back inbounds, but other than that, it was a solid run. Next, we have a mysterious run, a run without surviving video proof. It was a 150.4 achieved by Kaiser Nation 1 on the 21st of September. Based on other runs at the time, we can speculate that it was similar to Blue's run, but with much tighter execution. 4 days later, Harmjan would shave off 13 seconds with a 137.2. How? Well, it turns out at the top of the cliff before you clip back in bounds, you can jump off this cliff and end up with half a heart. So how would you lose that last sliver of health? Well, it turns out that the frigid air hitbox clips down into the ground, and as we all know, every 10 seconds, Link loses half a heart in cold weather. So Harmjan waited at the top until they lost half a heart, then jumped down to glorious demise. Merely a short 2 days later, acclaimed any% runner Wolhikesong would get a 129.3, with a much smoother scope clip and jumping slightly earlier. And then, Wolhikesong would do something no one was prepared for. (103.9). How? How could there be almost 30 seconds of time save? Well, as it turns out, you can use the corner of the box in the first room to scope clip. No more boxes. Thank Hylia. The cold damage strategy stayed the same, and on the 18th of November, Wolhike would get a 1-minute 3-second time. A couple months later, on the 2nd of February 2019, Peep would shave off 0.7 of a second with slightly tighter execution. It's time to meet 2 new runners, Zeref and Dovahkiin. Dovahkiin would get a 102.6, saving 4/5 of a second. Zeref would then save 0.7 with a 101.9. They would trade back and forth like this for a while, getting ever closer to the legendary sub 1 minute run. On the 21st of June, Dovahkiin achieved a 1.06, a mere 2 frames away from the sub 1 minute. The question now wasn't, is sub 1 minute possible? The question was, who was gonna get it first? It wasn't Xerath, it wasn't Dovahkiin, it was Quirp. With a 59.933, Quirp would finally break the legendary barrier.
Dude, oh no. Dude, please. That had to be a 43, dude. That had to be.
The trick for optimization was a lightning fast scope clip, and then jumping as soon as possible. Remember, the final damage has to be from falling, so you want the cold damage to happen as soon as possible before hitting the ground. Now that times are under 1 minute, it's coming down to the frame. Only minuscule time saves were left. Xerath and Dovahkiin would continue taking it down bit by bit. Over the 5 records handed down, 3 of them would be only by a single frame. All of these microscopic time saves would result in one last legendary run. On the 27th of May, Xerath would fall off a cliff with a final time of 59.233. For such a ridiculous category, it's funny how basically perfect this run is. The majority of the run is spent getting the Sheikah Slate. Almost every single frame was squeezed out of the category. It isn't perfect, but it's pretty damn close. Oh, and by the way, I don't condone suicide